Girl, stop playing. Welcome back to another episode of the Girl Stop Playin Podcast. It's your favorite homegirl, Koereyelle, here to encourage you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. This is another Mindset Monday solo sermon. I was calling these solo episodes, but y'all, I got to get real with myself. I got to keep it real and get real clear on what God is calling me to do. And so, yes, these are sermons. Yes, this is my opportunity to literally spill out, pour out my soul in hopes that it does something to your spirit. And so this week I am bringing you a topic that is a familiar conversation, but bringing it to you in a new way, okay? Because there's a lot of talk about the glow up, this glow up, like everybody's trying to get to this glow up. But in reality, there is no glow without God. And so a lot of the things that we aspire to do, aspire to become, aspire to have, we have these great aspirations, but then we are trying to get there without God and wondering why we're struggling. What I need for you to understand is that there is no success story without the struggle story. So the struggle is a part of it, but you don't have to stay in the struggle. The only way that you are going to stay in the struggle is if you are trying to seek the things that you want without first seeking God. There is no light at the end of the tunnel without going through the darkness. The darkness is a prerequisite to getting to the light. And so many of us are running from the darkness, not knowing that that darkness is what's truly going to bring out our inner light. It's in the dark times that we are developed. It's in the moments of confusion where God is truly calling us to trust Him, not to try to figure it out on ourselves, by ourselves, not to try to lean into our own understanding, but really understanding that God has every single answer to the questions that we haven't even fixed our lips to ask. So if we're going to glow up, we got to grow up, okay? We got to put our childish habits aside. We got to put our silly desires aside. We got to put our desperation aside and trust that what God has for us is so much better than what we're currently experiencing, so much better than what we could ever even ask for. And so I personally decided that, like, I'm done trying to call the shots. I don't need to be the boss. I don't think that I know it all. I've proven that I don't know it all. And I know that I can't do it all without getting right with God, without going to God. I was listening to a sermon earlier today, and the message was about the story of Lazarus. Okay. And now, y'all, I am not, like, my mama had me in Sunday school a little bit, but I am not the churchiest of church girls. So I don't pretend to know it all. I don't proclaim to understand it all. But in this story of Lazarus, Lazarus was the man that God brought back from the dead after 4 days. Okay. He'd been dead for 4 days. Mary and Martha were going through it. They were in mourning. And on the fourth day is when Jesus showed up and brought him back from the dead. The confirmation in that message was that God can bring you up out, because he literally brought him up out of this tomb that he had been put in 4 days earlier. He can literally bring you up out of any situation that you find yourself in, whether it's sickness, whether it's abuse, whether it's addiction, or just confusion. And so it really made me feel at ease knowing that all I have to do is be obedient. All I have to do is follow directions. If he can bring somebody up out of death, there's nothing that I could be going through that he can't get me out of. All I have to do is know that most of the things I go through are meant to get me to the life that I'm meant to live. It's all a part of the story. It's all a part of the journey. But a lot of times it requires the death of the old me. And I got to be willing to let old Co die so that I can come into my true self, as what I like to call Co 2.0. The new and improved version that's better than I could even imagine. But I got to be willing to bury my old beliefs. Literally, you got to bury your old beliefs, give up your old ways of thinking, Get rid of trying to do it my way and submit to doing it God's way, even when I don't get it, even when I can't see it, even when this vision that I have for my life does not match my current view. I got to be willing to give it over to God and trust that God is going to give it back to me 10 times over. Give me double for my trouble. I can't afford to get impatient, even when it seems like things aren't working out. I can't afford to get frustrated with God, even if it seems like he's forgotten about me. Even when I'm looking around like, God, I see what you've done for others, but God, when you going to do it for me? When you going to look out for your girl? I can't afford to get frustrated even in those moments. I can't afford to rely on my own understanding, knowing that I don't know his plan. And so if you truly want to glow up, not just a temporary one, but a lasting glow, I think that there's 4 things we got to do to get started. So number 1, and you know these 4 things is an acronym for GLOW, because I can't help myself, y'all. I'm still a 2nd, 3rd grade teacher in my head, okay? So the G in GLOW, we got to go to God for clarity. Before you waste a minute trying to plan, you got to spend those minutes in prayer. Now, you might be wondering why you're always struggling or even questioning why you have been in solitude, but the solitude helps your soul grow. So when things aren't adding up, you got to ask God to start subtracting what doesn't belong. You got to pray for clarity on your purpose, but also be willing to release people who are not part of his plan. You got to be willing to accept it when he starts revealing and removing those who are in alignment with your assignment. Even when it doesn't feel good, even when it surprises you, even when it knocks your socks off, because you start praying for God to release and remove, and then people start falling off. People who you thought were for you, people who you've been calling your friends, just start dropping off. You got to be willing to accept it. You got to be willing to trust that God has the perfect plan for you outside of the plan that you see for yourself. So you got to be willing to pray when you're confused. You got to be willing to pray when you need clarity. You got to be willing to pray when you need confirmation, when you feel convicted, when you feel unsure of your calling. Pray when you are searching for an answer. Now, you can play like you got it all together, like you know it all or you have it all figured out, or you can pray that God reveals his perfect plan. Because you get nothing out of pretending like you've got it all mapped out, knowing that God has the map. God has laid out the perfect path to lead you to your purpose, but you want to play the boss so bad instead of letting God give you the play, instead of following his direction. So if you truly are ready for this permanent glow up, not this seasonal glow up, first thing you got to be willing to do is give it over to God. You got to go to God for clarity. The second thing that I need for you to do, our L, you got to let go of your need for perfection, because God doesn't need a perfect person. He needs a purposed person. Let me say that again. God does not need a perfect person. He needs a purposed person, someone who is willing to spend the time pursuing the purpose that they were born to live out. There is something far greater that you were born to do, something that will blow your mind once you step into that season, something that you cannot even dream up for yourself. And there's a version of yourself that you won't be able to meet until you let go of your desire to perform or to be perfect. You are setting yourself up for failure by having unrealistic expectations of yourself, by getting frustrated when you fail, instead of using it as fuel to help you go further. And y'all, I know this is going to hurt some feelings, but perfect Patty doesn't exist. She's literally a figment of your imagination. You made homegirl up, okay? And she is keeping you from embracing your truth. But in reality, your truth is what is going to take you into the life that you've been longing to live, that life that you've been dreaming about, but thinking that you got to pretend like you're perfect so you can get there. It's your authenticity that's going to attract your true tribe. Your willingness to be yourself is what's going to push you towards your purpose. You got to let your pain that pain you are currently experiencing push you until your purpose starts to pull you. You got to embrace that pain, even though it doesn't feel good. But the longer you try to pretend like there is no pain, like you got it all together, like it's all perfect, it's all good, the longer you try to pretend there's no pain, the longer it'll take you to get on the right path that leads you to the promised land. And the promised land is God's promise. It's where God's promises are brought into fruition. God has made so many promises crystal clear. In Deuteronomy 31:8, he said, when he said, the Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. He's telling you right there, I won't leave you. Even when it gets dark, even when it gets scary, even when it's hard for you to see what's in front of you, see what I got for you, trust that I still got you. In Psalms 37:24, he says, though he may stumble, he will not fall. How many times has God had to scrape you up off the floor, get you back together? How many times did you stumble or struggle, but somehow you made it through? Now, if you like me, you done been through some moments where you done made some bad decisions that have knocked you down, felt like life is just dragging you, but somehow you did not die. You know that meme? It's like, but did you die? You done went through all of that, but did you die? Somehow God still had you then like he still has you now. Don't ever think that you are alone on this journey. Even if it gets lonely, you are not alone because God didn't forget about you. He knew that you were going to stumble. He knew that you was going to struggle. He knows what you are going through and he knows what he has for you. He knows what you are getting to. Even when you can't see beyond your current struggle, you have to understand there is something beyond this current struggle that God has for you. It's just a season. Okay. So you got to be willing to go to God. You got to be willing to let go of your need for perfection, knowing that that perfection is going to keep you from your purpose. The third thing you have to do is you have to own your story and your struggle. You got to own your story and your struggle. Okay. You got to turn your obstacles into opportunities by recognizing how they play a part in your life's purpose. You didn't go through it for no reason. You got to turn those L's into lessons and learn how to leverage them because God always has a plan. He always has a plan and it's always unfolding perfectly, even when it's full of pain, even when it's full of confusion. He will not leave you in a low place, but he will allow you to learn the lesson in hopes that you'll figure out how to leverage that lesson, in hopes that you'll turn around and teach it to someone else. I don't believe that I go through the crazy things that I go through for nothing. I believe that the things that I go through are meant to help me get better, help me learn a lesson so that I can turn around and teach it to somebody else so that I can keep them from struggling. See me, you ain't got to tell me twice. You know that real is like, you ain't got to worry about me. You ain't got to worry about me making that same mistake twice. I don't have to go through the same struggle more than once. Not me. I'm going to take my L, collect my little L, and learn the lesson. Now, I'm not saying that I'll never make another mistake, but I can bet you my bottom dollar that it won't be that same mistake. I don't have to do it twice, God. Show me one time and we good. But so many of us want to hide from our struggle. So many of us want to pretend like we didn't mess up, like we didn't make a bad decision. We're busy blaming everybody else, not being real about the bad decisions we made. Not just accepting that we made a mistake and figuring out how we can take that mistake and move forward. Like we don't get it wrong sometimes. And all that pretending will keep you in a constant state of confusion. So you got to be willing to face the facts, face your failures, and use it to move into your future. Understanding that every single roadblock along the way, that doesn't stop you in your tracks. It doesn't stop you. You just got to learn how to navigate it in a new way. You got to stop trying to sweep your struggles under the rug and act like they don't exist. So think about what you have experienced that you literally thought was going to break you. What have you been through that you didn't know how you were going to get up out of this thing? You didn't know how you were going to survive this struggle. And then figure out how can you use the lesson that you learned in that struggle as a stone to build this new you. Every single struggle is a stone. Every single burden, every single roadblock is a brick to building the new you. Don't try to toss it to the side. You can't build nothing if you're tossing all your bricks to the side. So you got to use those bricks as building blocks to build the new you. So you got to go to God for clarity, let go of your need for perfection, be willing to own your story and your struggle. And then finally, you got to be willing to work for what you want. Because you don't just get what you pray for, you get what you prepare for. I will never, ever, ever give you the false sense of hope by having you think that it's going to be all good, it's going to be easy. But you can rest assured that the work will be worth it. That God doesn't, he's not going to set you up and send you out without fulfilling his promises. But you got to give him something to work with. You got to give him something to bless. And he ain't going to bless no mess. Okay. The work with an E, y'all already know this, but I'd like to remind you, the work with an E is the effort and the energy that you dedicate to your own dreams outside of what you do for other people. That's the work with an O. You wouldn't have to be out here slaving away and struggling to get by if you just spent a little more time focusing on the work with an E, getting connected to God so that you can get clarity from God on what you should be doing, on the best use of your time. So you're not wasting time, like asking God what should have your attention. How should I be using my time? One of the main reasons we continue to run into these roadblocks is because we're busy trying to run other people's races. We're busy trying to do what we saw somebody else doing, not knowing that we're delaying our own success by trying to follow in their footsteps. The only thing you should be following is God's direction. Anything else is a distraction. The only thing, I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. The only thing you should be following is God's direction. Anything else is a distraction. All your favorite faves on Instagram, all the good girls that you think got it going on, distractions. If it's not God's direction for your life, it's a distraction. You can't be so focused on what God is doing for other people that you don't recognize and realize what he's trying to do for you. So spend some time asking yourself, like, what have you been spending your time focused on? Who have you been spending your time investing in? Whose dreams have you been out here building instead of focusing on building your own? Whose path have you been playing around on instead of asking God to put you on your path? Part of my prayer is always, God, put me on my path and clear that path for your girl. Don't just put me on there, God. Clear the way. Okay. Not saying that I'm expecting things to be perfect. Not saying that I'm expecting not to ever struggle, but put me on the right path, God, because I know once I'm on that path, I can put in the work to get to what I want. And not even what I want, but what you want for me. Because I've spent way too much time trying to go after things that I thought that I wanted for myself, not knowing what I truly needed. Because my vision can only take me so far. It's God's vision for me that is going to get me to the promised land. It's going to get me to really the destination that I was born to be in. And so if you are truly ready for that lasting glow up, you got to go to God for clarity. You got to let go of your need for perfection. You got to own your story and your struggle, and you got to work for what you want. I hope that this message, it was for somebody, because my prayer is always that somebody who needs to hear it, somebody's spirit is going to pick up what I'm putting down. And so I hope that it was you. I hope that you are feeling encouraged, inspired, and ready to glow up. I love you. I got nothing but love for you. I want nothing but love for you. And I'll see you on the next episode.